Most agents don't fail because of lack of effort. They fail because they don't trust their strategy long enough to see the results they're hoping for. So in essence, what this is saying is you're not lazy, right? You're not broken. You just haven't gotten fully confident in the lead generation plan that you're putting together to get you to the promised land. So because of that, we've discussed this back in episode 84, is we pivot and we change. We tinker what we thought needed to be fixed. You bail on a strategy before those seeds that are in the ground start to surface, like we talked about in prior episodes. And today, the hope with this episode, after we've just identified the depths and the power, and I gave you that client pyramid in episode 101, I want to give you the specifics. I want to change this forever, because this isn't another list, right? The topic is the top 15 lead gen plays of top producers. It's not just another list for you guys. I'm actually calling it a clarity pass to say, among the clutter, here's the true clarity for which I should be setting my target on. Sound good? In this episode, I'm going to be walking you through, as I mentioned, those top 15 lead generation plays that have been vetted through my 20 years experience of what the top producers are actually doing in their business. These are the most reliable, the most consistent sources that are being used across markets, across business models, across stages of growth, across the industry. Plus, at the very end, I'm going to drop a mega bonus. So stay to the very end so I can show you how I wrap this all together. So what this isn't, right, what this is not today, will be a deep dive into every single strategy, because we would need a full podcast at least for each one. What it is, it's a big picture look at what's actually working. So you can choose your path forward through the 7 C's, through all the frameworks I've provided, and then just stay committed to it. I've distilled it down to these top 15. So if you've been following along so far, we started with the 7 C's to create massive alignment in the business and the person you want to build. Right? We've talked about things like the core 4 to share all how lead gen falls into these like 4 little simple buckets. We expanded upon it in case you wanted to build some leverage and you were ready to build the +4 into your business. I asked you guys then to overarching, put this success triangle over top as a filter, as a lens through every challenge for this business. And I'm hoping you followed me on this list. So as we unpack this, right, I want you to think about these things, right? Frameworks are only powerful if you know what to plug into them, right? And this episode is the plugin. Now, as you listen to this, I want you to ask yourself 2 simple questions. Question number 1 is this: which of these am I doing already? Okay? But not with full intention. Because as you hear these things, we're going to go through them, you're going to say, yeah, I do a little bit of this. But I want you to get clear here in the episode to say with full intention or not. And the goal by giving you the top 15 is not to say, I want you to put all 15 into your business. That would be bad coaching. It's going to be to find the 1 to 2 to 3 that you are going to put this full intention into. Okay? The second question I want you to think through is, which of these could become a pillar in my business, right? Pillars are meant to hold up the business, right? We only have to have a few supporting structures that hold up a house. We only need 1 to 2 to 3 pillars that can be the thing that hold up the weight of our business. And that's what I want you to be thinking through as you hear these. Now, I want to give you a reminder as well. I don't want us to over-label. Over-label means like thinking that this business is so rigid and that it has to fall perfectly within a framework or something that we've talked about. And what I want to talk to you, because you've gotten these core frameworks, you're hopefully using them sometimes in your business now. These sources, these lead sources, they're not going to perfectly fit into one beautiful like core 4 box all the time. So let me explain. Your database might begin in the core 4. This is the warm outreach, but it might become an incredible +4, which was your clients, right? So you can see if we overlabel, hey, wait, you said it's here, but that's actually here. You just think it transitions for your business once the maturity happens, right? Educational events, right? They touch every quadrant of the core 4 because we reach out to the people that we know to get them there. We might message a cold audience to get them into the room. You might spend paid ads to fill up the room. And you might make some social media posts to ensure that everybody in your one-to-many audience is seeing it. So you can see again why we wouldn't want to overlabel one strategy into one of these things. These frameworks are just meant to be lenses for which you think through. Agent referrals are a great one, right? They might start with the effort we put in here one-to-one, but then over time, as you build these relationships, they evolve into an inbound inquiry where they're sending you business and deals and happiness. All right. So basically what I'm saying is this: use the frameworks that you've heard as lenses, not labels. Your strategy is going to evolve, and that's the point. So will these strategies and where they fit within. So let's walk through these top 15 lead gen strategies now. We're going to start, again, I'm going to use this core 4 analogy over top, which is where you do the work, right? The core 4 was you doing the heavy lifting. And if we're going to talk through the top 15, well, it makes sense to start where we kind of identified, which was the active and warm bucket. And what is that? One of the top 15 lead gen sources is your sphere of influence. Nobody listening to this would be like, oh yeah, I didn't think that one would be there, right? So we're not going to go through the depth, but I want you to see this. This is your personal network. This is your past clients. This is your friends, your families, your colleagues. But I want you to think about it this. This is more than a list. It should become a system. And those are some of the things we've talked about so far. If you are an agent and all you do is decide to say that you will send one handwritten quarterly update to your top 50, top 100, or whoever you have an address for, that one system could bring in 50K, 100K, 200K annually without spending dollars on ads, without having to go out to other places, right? This one part of your sphere operating system might do that, right? Most agents forget to water the plants they already own. The goal isn't the fancy CRM. It's a repeatable rhythm, for which we talked about, that keep you just top of mind. And that's the whole goal of sphere of influence, right? It might start with those 20 names. It might start with the 50 people in your inbox. It might start with 100 people in your lead system. And all we have to do, because we're not diving into the specifics, is build a connection plan. Simple, warm, consistent, and I've given you that idea through things like the success triangle. Okay, so lead gen system number 1, ROI. Okay, done by almost all. Now, these are not in any particular order. I do want to hit you up with number 2. Again, in no specific order. Agent to agent referrals is a top producing, revenue generating list of lead sources. This group of people is a start with warm outreach, right? And then it can evolve into inbound, because if you build these warm outreaches and rapport with agents in your market, your auxiliary markets, your markets from afar, when you build that, eventually they just become an inbound source. But I put them here in the work you have to do, because this might be intriguing to you, but you haven't put in the work. So most agents underestimate the power of this and the power truly of industry relationships, right? If you sent, instead of handwritten cards to your database, you sent a handwritten letter to the offices of the agents that you've met online across Canada, across Alberta in my case, you can imagine the warmth and the trust that you're building with them, right? So if you did this and you selectively went after the marketplace, met and built relationships online, took it further and brought in some traditional elements like sending them a letter, you can imagine that where these relationships could go, right? It's core 4, meaning start with warm outreach, and then scale it to make it a +4, an inbound, agents doing work for you, right? If we want to be more referrals from agents, we just have to be more referable. We have to show up with value. We have to show up consistently. We have to show up with clarity and not just desperation. So join agent groups. connect online, post insights, tag other folks, build a set number of new relationships per month, per quarter, per week, right? Do it intentionally into the marketplaces that are driving business into yours, or you could actively send business out to them. This is a core strategy that we need to think about when it comes to building our businesses. If I was a Calgary-based agent today, knowing the net migration of people moving to Alberta, if I am not spending 30 minutes a day to build external relationships with agents, then I'm doing something wrong. Okay, third one, educational events. All right, educational events, one of the top 15 lead sources. You host these, you drive it, you organize it, but the impact that you have has the ability to touch, as I mentioned before, all different parts of the core four, right? When we were running a team, we would run a quarterly investor nights, whether it be just a keynote style presentation, whether we'd bring in people, we'd host a panel of agent experts, we'd bring in property managers and investor agents extraordinaire, right? Host something quarterly, invite your sphere, run ads, drive it organically social, tag the vendors, get sponsors, and then repost things and host them on your insider channels or wide open on YouTube, right? A single event will hit all four quadrants. And if it's done right, it'll also hit the +4 bucket of people as well, right? Events are kind of like gravity, right? It creates gravity. You become the educator, you get put up on the pedestal, right? You're not the chaser, which is great. And then they give you a reason to reach out, to follow up, to re-engage, ask for follow-up, ask for changes, ask for what's next, right? Just pick a topic, you guys, schedule a date, invite your list, use cold leads, ask vendor partners, and you'd be surprised where you could take this. Now, this is both online, and offline. You can imagine the logistics that go with an offline event are much larger. The costs involved, the logistics to pull it off, a little bit hairier. But if you wanted to start something small, you could do something like this online. And this would be buyer seminars, first-time buyers, second-time buyers, first-time sellers, first-time investor, first-time acreage, new home market, buying condos. You can imagine all the different people for which you wanted to target that you could create educational events around. Okay, so that's the first three. Let's keep going. Investors. Another one of the top 15 lead sources that I see happening in the industry, right? Investors are pretty sweet because they're kind of fast-moving people, right? They tend to be repeat clients and they bring their friends when you deliver. And what I mean by that is investors know other investors. Investors learn their craft and they center themselves around other people. And if you can do good work for some, then they're going to tell their friends, right? And also they're going to tell their friends and they're also going to use you for the default parts of this business, which are the typical things realtors are going for. Sell my house, buy my son a house. And you're going to get those referrals because dealing with investors and the complexity of investment real estate is harder. You earn your trust there and things go along ways positively for you, right? You could create a deal of the week email. You could do an investment deal analyzer, which is just a simple spreadsheet that you plug in the numbers because you're in the know on a Google sheet. And you can send that. You share that out on a monthly email. You share that out or you send it to a curated list of people that you know on social to say, here's the latest deal analyzer here in your DMs. You have to become the go-to for high volume investors. And you do that with trust and value, right? Investors are never going to want fluff, right? They just want the straight goods. They want numbers, they want speed, they want trust, they want you to use the lingo. So if you think about, if you're the type of agent where you're obviously thinking about ROI, equity, that kind of stuff, but you're not like massively emotional. It's not about the beautiful kitchens. Maybe you're speaking the investor language. You don't need to be a math whiz, but you need to understand it, right? You need to understand cash flow, returns, and how to find good deals. So find if you think this for you is a niche that you've been waiting on. I mentioned about it in the avatars, but we need to decide, are you in the investment corner, right? If you wanted it, then your newsletters are going to speak to this, right? The groups that you create on social media like Facebook, the curated sendouts are going to be delivering investment type business. So the question is, of one of the four of the, we're on number 4 of 15, is this one for you? So that's all active warm bucket. In general. But of course, if you're trying to grow that group, you can see how that would expand to cold people. But typically, it's going to be referred through unless you show up in places where investment deals are happening. Okay, here's a fifth one of the top 15. still to today is open houses, right? This is typically active and cold, right? That's part of the active cold world. It's old school, right? But it's still one of the best free ways to meet strangers in any market, no matter where you are and how old you are and how long you've been in this business, right? It's not unheard of to hear that a new agent could jump into open housing with a consistent strategy and do a deal every other month and then move it up to a deal every month and all of a sudden riding their way into some past client success stories, right? It's not just that it's the day of. So those that master open houses, it's not just the event per se, meaning that 1 to 3 on a Saturday. It's more than that. People that master open house strategies are actually making a full playbook, a whole system around it. Treat it like a community event, which means leverage before, leverage during, bring value and after. Use it on your social, use it on your door knocking, use it with feedback forms and all of those things. So the trick to mastering an open house is to build your simple checklist. All right, once you commit to this being your thing, build a checklist so that you can monetize before, during, and after what you're going to do and how you're going to promote it, so that this is more than just a one-time 2-hour event that you show up and pray and you hope that results will come, into a full checklist of elements that you do each time, that this is a full lead generation machine, right? The goal with open houses is we want to offer things like micro value while we're there, because nobody really wants to hand their contacts over to a realtor, right? But if there's a little bit of micro value, like the last 3 homes to sell in your area, right? What is the most recent sale price? What is the dollar per square foot? What are you hearing from others, right? What did number blank, blank, blank on street sell for? Would you like an updated market evaluation? How does that affect current sale prices? How does your property tax match up with your current values, right? Offer micro value that people might have some curiosity for in the marketplace. Then block the time per week, make it a ritual, and make this one of the top lead sources that you have in this business. All right, that's that. Number 6, right? Today is everybody's favorite, is door knocking, right? When done right, it works. It's not about numbers per se, because people say I've knocked so many doors. It's more about how do I build real connections at the door, right? Right. It is not unheard of for agents who simply decide that door knocking is going to be a strategy that they deploy. And if they are actively selling listings, that they just say, well, for now on, I'm going to knock both sides of the street for every single listing we take. And I'm going to do this around my transaction. I might do this beforehand to introduce them that this is coming. I might do it after we've just sold to say, how has this affected their sale price? It is not uncommon that if you just deploy that strategy for, say, every listing you took once per month, over the 12 months, that you will develop multiple more listings than you did if you just moved on to the next one, right? We need to bring curiosity, not a pitch, which is like, how has this sale price affected homes in your area? That's curiosity, right? What about this sale do you need to know so that you can protect your equity when time comes, right? Again, the goal here is to consider, why am I at the door? If it is transactional, it's pretty easy because you're on a pedestal. You're the agent that just sold it or just listed it. And you can talk so well about, we know the area, we've heard the feedback, why did my buyer choose this area? And you can get in front of sellers that should be curious about the value. If it's not transactional, you might have things like the I have a buyer message, which says, I'm going to go and touch base with everybody on the street based on the criteria my buyer's looking for, and open conversations, right? So I have a buyer, right? Transaction reasons, your own community where you are the advocate for the area, right? Incredibly powerful, super relatable. Or you're trying to springboard a farm, where you're trying to showcase that you've had recent success, or that you just simply love the community and you've become a messenger for it and you're the community advocate. Those are the key reasons you would door knock today. So don't just go out and say, generally, I'm going to start door knocking, because this will lead to 0 results. There is no one and dones in positive ROI door knocking. If you just jump from community to community and you never come back and they don't show your face, door knocking is not for you. And it's just random acts of somewhat kindness. All right. So people are curious. You just got to block the time. Okay. Let's jump into number 7. This would be, I'm grouping 2 groups together, tenants and landlords. Okay. Tenants and landlords, future buyers, future sellers. Pretty simple. We all want a Rolodex of future buyers, future sellers. They're just different in different disguises. Imagine this. Imagine we combine one of the strategies from before, which is educational, and you ran a rent versus buy Zoom online webinar or a rent versus Zoom in-person event that just says, in today's market, where we are, let me explain to you the positives of staying as a rental versus should you be time to consider an ownership, right? When you think about this, you're going to get a lot of would-be buyers for the future. And a lot of my people may not go down this path because they're saying, well, I don't know who's going to turn into home owners. But in reality, if you think about yourself, at one point in time, you were a renter. Maybe you're listening, you still are. And you have hopes to be a homeowner in the future. Well, leaning into that is probably a reasonable strategy because there's a bigger pool of people that want to be owners than currently are, right? Landlords are a group of owners that eventually the season will run out on their property and they're going to want somebody. And they need somebody to give them value along the way, right? These are both often overlooked, but also very easy to reach because you can target tenants simply by staying connected to those who are actively in the property management game, right? And you can target landlords as well because they advertise online. Oftentimes they're using property management companies as well, and you can get in front of these people. So there's so many strategies to deploy when it comes to either chasing tenants or landlords. One of the top agents at my team for the last 5 years running started her business all focused on tenant relationships that she nurtured over time, brought micro value to, and in turn now she is an investor focused agent, but she has warmed up tenant after tenant after tenant after tenant into her warm big hug where they trusted her, right? Could you use a hook, a webinar funnel, run ads, YouTube videos, YouTube ads, meta things? 100%. And they could be a 2-page guide. Should you sell or hold to get those would-be landlords? Would you rent or buy? 2-page guide on how to decide. And then you work through it. However you do that, whether it's in person, in a community newsletter, to your own sphere people, on somebody's online event, you could see that either one of these tenants and landlords are a full strategy you could deploy. The question is it for you? The beautiful part about these is these are endless, right? There's always a new tenant coming. There's always a buyer that turned into a landlord, or there's somebody that couldn't sell that had to rent instead, and they're a landlord now by default. So that is number 7. Number 8 would be community farming. I touched on that a little bit. One of the top 15 lead sources. This is kind of like that concept of just like own your patch of land, own your patch of the marketplace. And when you do that, you have to show up consistently, and then you build trust over time, right? Every single market everywhere will have dominant community farm agents, and that they might not have started that way in their career, but they evolved to that over time. That when we look around, and if I even pulled data right now about my entire MLS and I went to say, okay, let me see the top 50, a good chunk of that top 50 will have a strong community farm as a portion of their business. Because once you build that trust, once you work through showing up consistently, it is, if you're a local resident that has been kind of nurtured on by a consistent agent, it's hard to lose that as long as you stay consistent and you're willing to do that. Farming, like in reality, and you're planting all these seeds over time, it doesn't just sprout out, right? You know, the harvest is a lot further down the path from the seeding, right? It compounds when you stay in the game, and then year over year, when you're looking to rebuild this, it's less and less work. The soil gets better. Come list me calls happen quicker. There's less need for constant conversions because they're like, come list my house, Darren, right? The coolest thing about community farming is you're not just marketing, like blank, general marketing. You're building a local brand equity, a local brand presence. And when people do this, you need to have at least a 12-month plus horizon before you think you're going to end up in a positive ROI. But again, like many things, agents quit too quickly, right? They quit and they believe results should come earlier than that. And sometimes they do. But we need to come up with your calendar of effort, both on the doorstep, in the mailbox, and online if there's an opportunity. And then you just go and you create a consistent path for it. But again, one of the top 15 lead sources still today is community farming, mostly done old school. All right, let's switch gears now to passive, more content-driven stuff. So again, at the top, I can't go any further without talking about the power of organic social media. All right, so this is an add-on. It's part of the success triangle for every strategy, for every challenge, as you know, right? Social is one of those nodes of the triangle, but it is truly a true strategy to create leads, right? If you go back to the episode number 99, you'll see we talked about it to Derek Thistle, and he builds a huge portion of his top 0.05% business via social exclusively. So what we don't need to do with this is we don't need to concern ourselves about growing by going viral, right? But you need to be remembered. And you need to be remembered. To be remembered, you have to put out content that's good, that isn't pitchy, that feels like easy to watch. And I talk back to Derek, I find myself engaging with most of his content. That is going to keep me there on his funnel forever, right? Because the content, right? If we're a solo agent and we're committing to one post a day that's genuine, that is using things like the stab approach, where it's a mix of like business and some teaching moments and some funny moments and a lot about us, you're going to do very well, right? The brand you're creating is what people say when you're not in the room. It's not just going to be what the feed looks like. It's going to be the thing that they say when they're talking to their friends about you, right? And the organic social media world is the best thing to do to curate kind of the who you are. What do you like? Why should you like so-and-so agent? Because you can tell they love this. And then you're going to want to connect your friend with Johnny, or that person that's following you is going to say, I can't wait till I'm ready for real estate because she's the one for me, right? Post what you already say in conversations in a way that it brings value to other people. Frequently asked questions, advice we have, behind the scenes moments, the good, the bad, the ugly, your true thoughts. Make it personal, right? Find your content buckets that for when they do talk about you when you're not in the room, that it does showcase what you want people to know about you, right? Your proof of success, the type of real estate you like to showcase, the things you like to talk about educationally, where you're an expert, the personality parts for which you want. And just stay consistent in this. Do this, it becomes a lead source in its own right. But that doesn't mean it has to be a lead source for you. Remember, it can just be kind of an online CRM for the people that you know. All right, number 10, YouTube. YouTube is a big version of lead generation for some, right? This is the quote unquote evergreen play because YouTube is a search engine, right? So people go there to search for things. They might look for answers to a problem in your community. They might look for specifics about a community in your city. They might look for updates on the market in your town, right? So these are evergreen type pieces that people can search for. They are the long-term trust building, slowly building play, right? And you can build this with 1 video a week, 2 video a week. I know friends that do 3 videos a week. And I do know some that get away with doing 1 strong uber focused market update per month that they just feel and showcase all of their thoughts. And it builds and finds your folks, right? So we got to think about YouTube as building your library of actions. It's not a feed, right? That's what social's for. It's more of a library to resource, right? This can be about subscription count, which is great, but it's more than that. You have people with small subscription bases delivering good ROI on their time, right? It's more about the discoverability than the subscription count. Think, what would someone search to find a realtor like me, right? Am I sharing things that people actually search for, right? So build your plan around your buckets and know that you're now not just worried about the 24-hour scroll cycle of social media, right? You are there building evergreen content that might get updated from time to time, like a market update would get updated every month, every year. If you do an annual recap, maybe the rules around how to buy a house today in XYZ city change, but it's more evergreen than you think. So that's number 10, you guys. Another one is Google Ads and Google My Business. All right. So these kind of go hand in hand. The first path would be structuring my Google online presence to be consistent with all of how I look online so that it can reach, and when Google is searching and crawling you, it's not finding errors. But then the expansion to that is when your Google My Business is set well and you're findable, and when it comes from a business standpoint, that Google Ads can be run and layered on top of that to drive business to you, right? On Google, people are already looking. So that's beautiful. They're already on the platform. It's just, how do we get discovered? How do we show up here? And this, again, tends to be more for the tech forward folks, but it is a baseline for which a lot of us can take on, right? You can spend 500,000, 5,000 a month on Google search ads to drive leads into your business, or you can just organically set it up, put all your testimonials on there. Over time, they rank up high, and you'll see your organic reach grow because of that, right? Paid works, organic works. It's just, I would only go to ads when you have a back end that's ready to handle the lead flow. Okay, right? We want to avoid, when we're on Google, spraying your message to dilution, which means that you want to have a common thing that people continue to come back to you for. So because the big world wide web is, well, everybody's on it. If you want your message to cut through the clutter, no different than on social media, you want your message to have a simplified call to action so that you can be the one that rises to the top when it comes to this. And as we know, the more that we're doing well on our SEO and our Google My Business, what we're finding is we're being findable in the chat, in the AI search engines as well. So that would be my thought. So that is, again, today, there are agents everywhere that within this strategy are easily seeing 1 to 2 to 3 and more new leads, strong, warmed leads that come in through their business, Google My Business, when done well. And it's a great add-on to maybe their sphere business or their social business or their open house business. But just think, is this for me today? All right, this lands me right into the next one, which is paid online. Paid online leads. All right, top 15 sources. Again, if we polled every mega team in North America, you will find that they run a huge portion of paid online leads. It's just what you do when you have to generate leads for other people, right? Paid online leads are not dead. They're not that they're all crappy ads. They're misunderstood. They work when you follow up properly and you have a business that follows up consistently for long periods of time, right? One client converts maybe 2 out of every 100 in today's online lead journey. If you can get it from 3 to 100, you could see the ROI going up, right? But the goal is touch points, fast touch points, relevant micro value, consistently using a CRM. And of course, you got to spend your way to get there. So these leads are bought, but then the relationships over time are earned, right? So we can't expect that this group of people is instant loyalty, right? We can't expect loyalty from a stranger. We can expect loyalty from people we know and have built trust around, but we earn it with the speed, the structure, and the follow-up systems, right? So the goal with this one is building your plan to handle what you're going to generate, and this might be a great lead gen source for you. The beautiful part is you don't have to leave your room. You could be sitting here like I am in this office and handling calls and making emails, and that might be a good fit for your business. Okay, we're almost there. 3 to go. Number 13. This one falls actually into the +4 bucket, which is like having other people drive work into yours. And this is just simply registering on whatever referral-based websites are available in your area. Right? Of course, things like Rank My Agent, Rate My Agent. In the US, you could go all across and just say referral real estate websites. And you're going to find that there's tons of providers out there that are working as like 24/7 salespeople for you, right? You pay a split, you pay 25 to 35% to these folks, but they're doing the work, they've created an audience, and they drive it into your world. So this might be a fantastic business model for you, right? These agents could be your main source, but it could be a supplement to the business you've created because you want a little bit of passive inbound and you're willing to pay those splits, right? The goal with these things is when you're on a referral website, they're likely syndicating your lead potentially to 2 or 3 agents, and speed to lead, of course, is important. Value is important. And then any of your proof for which once they get connected with you, your proof online, i.e. your social proof of success, the feed that you've created, maybe it's back to those YouTube videos that are there. When they pull you, they want to see that the person they've been referred over to is competent and relevant, right? So proof matters. So we have to make sure we're doing versions of other things and not just relying on the referral websites, right? Inside of referral websites, I would say let's not forget about just the power of the overall referral at the same time, right? Are we asking for reviews at all? Are we asking for reviews too late? Build that into your process, right? Create a review request template that goes out with every sale. And if you are using referral websites, if this sounds intriguing, just search in your areas to find out what's available for you, because there's agents everywhere at all levels benefiting from this. All right. 14, vendor partnerships. Vendor partnerships. This could be your broker. This could be your lawyer. This could be your inspector. Could be all three, should be all three. All gatekeepers to leads in our business, all right? If you co-created a buyer's guide with your mortgage broker and we both send it out to our lists, right? There's one tool that you could do to create business. Or you could find out what pieces of value that any of your industry partners have or that you could bring to. Could you bring them a market update video that they can send to their folks? Could there a special deal that could be had? Or do you just show up and sponsor some of their events and vice versa, right? The goal is to share value with other businesses that are curating their own audience, right? Don't just ask for business, just share value, give value to where they're funneling, you might as well be, right? The other step with vendor partners is I want you to think of them like your AAA clients, right? The ones that are in your sphere, the ones that are being touched socially, digitally, and traditionally, right? Your vendor partners, if you want them to pick you out of all the different realtors they know, the goal is to show up just like your database and show up that you care more often and that you bring value. And then they're likely to be the one, they're going to be like, yeah, Darren's the best out of these folks, right? Johnny's the one for me when I get a lead because I can tell how much he cares even about my own business. Does that make sense? I also want you to think with vendor partners beyond the industry. Because, again, think back to that word of triple clients. Beyond the industry means, well, this could be the small business, the coffee shop, the apparel company, anything that you know in your marketplace where they're a business running too, they can become just as good of a referral source as an industry one. And you want to treat them in an incredible way, like a top tier client, because business owners know a lot of people. They're in the business to create more inbound. So why not warm up to those folks? It could be the florist. It could be the sign company. It could be, who knows, the gym that you go to. All right, any of these things, treat them that way. All right, and the final one, which I kind of touched on with the landlords and tenants section, which is property managers as a whole. All right, property managers as a whole. They manage doors, right? They manage clients, they manage headaches on behalf of tenants and owners, and they're often overlooked. And they're often looking for help, right? Because they are the messenger. They are the go-between two people, right? This one side and this other side. And this section of people often gets a lot of flack. And oftentimes a good property manager, their focus is managing doors. It's not putting for sale signs on lawns, right? So if you think about this for a second, they are looking for support. They're looking to bring value both to the tenant side and to the landlord side. Why not cozy up to property managers who are not interested in selling, don't sell as well, and see how can you bring value to either party? And if you strategize by hitting a few property managers and you bring value there, you could also open the gateway drug to tenants and landlords from before and becomes a three-way win, right? With this, it's building trust over time. Start with support and then not the sales pitch, right? Help these guys look like heroes. Help the middleman who gets all the flack look like heroes to their clients, which are both landlords and both tenants. All right. Could be back to things like, should I sell? Should I keep renting? And you can go back to the same topics we had before, but now going back to PM, meaning property managers, they're curating an audience. Now go use it. All right, you guys, that is the top 15 lead sources that are being used today by top agents everywhere. Now, are there more? 100%. Are there niche things? 100%. But I'm here to tell you, those are the top 15, that if you're trying to decipher down where to go and where to attack when it comes to seeding, I highly suggest that you fall within these. That doesn't mean you're not a master at creating online funnels and you can drive cool little catchy hooks to drive to downloads and then you follow up. That's a very niche strategy. find your home within the 15. Tell me in a couple of years if it doesn't fit, you need more, and we'll go from there. But the last one, the bonus I talked to you guys about, is this. I call it the deal machine. All right. This is kind of like the meta source. Every deal you do, as we know, is a marketing flywheel. Don't just close it, compound it for more. Create some motivation. The best in our business, they create momentum. Doesn't mean they're going to do that right off the bat. Again, if we go back to the episode with Derek Thistle, I challenged him on this on episode 99. Top, again, 100 deal a year agent, solo agent. How much of this building momentum do you do? And his answer was like virtually none, Darren. Right? But that's the next phase. That's the next scale, is to say I can build momentum off the business to new people, to not just my warm database. Okay? Right? You're doing the work to get the business, right? Now the job, I believe, to create this momentum is called expanding and extracting the story, because you've got the asset. And now we need to share the story further so that we can create inbound and one-on-one and one-to-many conversations, right? So here's the deal. The deal machine is simply a checklist of things that I would do once I secure a sale, once I secure a purchase, once I sell the listing, right? Create the list that says, I'm going to post on these sites these things. I'm going to tag these people as these vendors, these folks that were part of the journey. I'm going to add the review in this way on that site into that email. I'm going to talk to this amount of neighbors. I'm going to send this type of story into my personal newsletter, and I'm going to run this playbook, this deal machine, every single time. Now, every one of us has different capacity levels to say, if I have one firm sale, what am I willing to do to meet new people, right? And the answer for today might be no. I don't need anything here. I'm working on my deal source number 1, 2, and 3, Darren. But maybe when it comes to squeezing more juice out of this fruit, it is the easy button, which is making 1 equal 2. And that's what the deal machine is for. So what if you didn't need a brand new strategy and you stopped searching for new ways to build your business? What if, right? What if instead of constantly changing course, that we steadfastly stay within one of these top 15, 2 of the top 15, maybe even 3. But I can tell you can be $1 million producer with 1 or 2. And you went all in consistently. Because here is the truth about this. These aren't 15 hacks, right? They're not trends. They're the foundational sources that top producers use every single year after every year across different markets, sellers and buyers markets, and everything in between. They work because they're built into human behavior, not focused on things like algorithmic changes and hot latest hacks to success. And here's what makes them even more powerful. Every single one of these lead sources fits within the frameworks we've already talked about to get to this point on this show. They fall into the core 4 if you feel really close to that one. They roll themselves into or out of the plus 4. They can be looked on with the success triangle. They might naturally roll into your every realtor's plan. And now, just think about it. If you're ready for the deal machine, create your simple momentum flywheel that's hiding inside of every single transaction. But remember, you guys, these sources are fluid. They grow, they evolve just like you, right? The cold contact becomes a warm relationship. The client becomes your loudest advocate. An event becomes your next 10 pieces of content. So it's not your job to do all 15 the way I started this. It's not at all. It's to commit to 3, build the habit, and let those results compound. So my suggestion for today's podcast is to stop collecting new strategies. Can you do that with me? I want you to start owning the ones that fit your voice. Go back through the 7 C's, your marketplace. You know what's working best and what's needed. And one of these top 15 or 2 of these are going to fit really well into your market and your core strengths. Okay? We've got the clarity. We've got the frameworks. Now your job is to execute. So let's get back to work. Let's get out there. Hope you enjoyed this deep dive into the seed section and now the top 15.